Hello from the 2019 Global Legal Hackathon in New York City, New York. We are at the Microsoft office in the Times Square area. Very beautiful facility. And of course, my name is Laurence Colletti. I'm the host for today's show. And joining me now from the land down under, I have Chris Roberts from Australia. Chris, where are you joining us from today?
It's from Melbourne, Australia, and we're at Monash University, which is one of the biggest universities in the Southern Hemisphere. I'm from the Law School, and we're acting as host for the Melbourne location.
Yeah, no, I've been watching you guys on social media. There is a lot of activity going on over there. So kudos on that. And we're getting a lot of action online. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. Our social media team are running around getting interviews with people and taking photos. We've got over 100 participants and over 20 teams, so they're being kept busy.
Well, Chris, before we get into the interview today, with our listeners, they'll probably want to know a little bit about you. And so can you just tell us where you work and what do you do?
Sure. So I'm the industry partnership manager at Monash Law School. So we're a top 5 law school in Australia. My role essentially is to work with organisations to strengthen the connection between the profession and our law school. And that can take the part of partnerships with organisations, sponsorship, student placements. It's essentially making sure that we as a law school have our finger on the pulse when it comes to what's happening out there in industry. And I guess that's why we're hosting the Melbourne Global Legal Hackathon at the moment, because it's all about digital disruption, as I'm sure your listeners are aware. And we think this vehicle is just terrific to try and get that message out there to our students and also get it out there to people who want to be involved.
Well, that's great. That's a great segue into my question. We've been asking everybody in this interview series, why they're doing the hackathon and why it's important to them. So just on a personal level, apart from the organization, why is it important to you, Chris, to be part of the hackathon and volunteering?
Look, I think it's a fantastic opportunity to be involved in something that is on a global scale. To throw out a challenge saying you've got 52 hours to come up with a solution to a problem in the legal sector, come up with something digitally and watch all of that happen. I was part of it last year for the inaugural Global Legal Hackathon, and I can tell you it was fascinating watching teams come together that comprised of law students, professionals, tech students. There was engineers involved. There were people from the profession. And we had 11 teams competing last year, and it was really, really interesting to watch them evolve over the course of that weekend and see some of the ideas come out at the end. And as I'm sure your listeners will be aware, we had a pitch session at the end, and you can watch those teams that, had a great mix of people really, really nail it. And it was fantastic to see a group that comprised mostly of law students, but had a few tech students and people from industry in it, go on to win the Australian Global Legal Hackathon. They went through the virtual rounds and they came second in their category in New York last year. And they've come back to Australia and got a $200,000 government grant to continue their work. So just to see something like this as a platform to launch those ideas is fantastic.
Well, Chris, as you're well aware, a lot of the locations that are hosting, oftentimes the host will put out a list of challenges, some issues that they see need to be dealt with in the legal profession. And so they'll put the challenge out to the volunteers to come up with a service or product that addresses that need. And so just in line with that, what are some of the challenges coming out of your neck of the woods?
Yeah, good question. So, as you know, there's sort of 2 streams to the Global Legal Hackathon. There's the private benefit and public good. There's a lot of social justice coming out in terms of the projects that teams are working on, and I guess that's a symptom of working in the environment of a law school. It's a heavy focus on that. But just going around and chatting to the teams this morning, there's a few ideas that are out there. One of them is a matchmaking platform to connect freelance lawyers, small firms and their clients. There's the creation of an early warning system that alerts organisations to legal risks. And there's also one which is a visual tool for contracts. So it actually shows the process for the board and employees to ensure that there's a successful performance of that contract. So it's visualising the legal process, which I think is fantastic.
Well, that's fantastic. I agree. So that sounds like a wonderful list of ideas there. So I'm going to put you on the spot here with this next question. It's our second to last one. We're getting a little short on time, but just want to pick your brain there. Just in terms of what you've seen, which idea do you think currently is going to win?
That's a good question, Laurence. I love the idea of the visual tool for contracts. Contracts are one of those things that can be quite complex if you aren't a lawyer, and coming up with a solution that lets lawyers put a contract together but then translates that into a visual tool so everyone can understand the process. I think that's got legs. I think that's something that people would like to see more of and has potential to be taken up by someone.
Excellent. Well, Chris, thank you so much. We're running out of time here, but I do have one last question for you. If our listeners, they want to reach out, learn a little bit more what was going on in Australia over at Monash, how can they find you?
Sure. So email address is the best way to contact me, and that's just chris.roberts@monash.edu, and you can also look me up on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Well, we reached the end of the road for today's episode. I want to thank our guest, Chris Roberts, for joining us today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
I also want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And if you like what you heard, please subscribe, rate, and review us in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or your favorite podcasting app. I'm Laurence Colletti, signing off from the 2019 Global Legal Hackathon here in New York at the Microsoft office in Times Square. Until next time, thank you for listening.
If you'd like more information about what you've heard today, please visit LegalTalkNetwork.com. Subscribe via iTunes and RSS. Find us on Twitter and Facebook, or download our free Legal Talk Network app in Google Play and iTunes. The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own and do not represent the views of, nor are they endorsed by, Legal Talk Network, its officers, directors, employees, agents, representatives, shareholders, and subsidiaries. None of the content should be considered legal advice. As always, consult a lawyer.